Today we're going to continue with lesson 8.2, which has to do with surface area still, but instead of them being rectangular prisms, we are now learning how to find the surface area of triangular prisms. It's going to basically be the same, except for we're just going to have some different shapes, because obviously triangular prisms have triangles in them, and rectangular prisms only had rectangles. All right, but surface area is still the area around or outside the 3D object. Okay, so we gave some examples of like this is what wrapping paper, this is what like the cardboard to make the tissue box would be. It's what goes on the outside of that 3D shape. Okay, when we unfold this net, our bottom is going to stay exactly where it is, that red bottom, and we're just going to fold down the left side, fold down the right side, and fold down our two triangles to the sides as well. Okay, so it'll end up looking something like this. Now when we do this, we'll rotate it so that it's going 3 straight, just like we normally do. To find the area of this triangle, though, we need to remember the formula that we can use to find the area of a triangle, because it is different than the formula we use for a rectangle. So the formula for the area of a triangle is area equals base times height divided by 2, or 1/2 times base times height. It is completely up to you which of those formulas you want to use. It does not matter. Okay, it's just your personal preference. All right, so let's solve some problems. Now, the first problem, we are going to draw the net. I don't believe that on your test, I'm not positive, but I don't believe that you'll have to draw a net of a triangular prism. I know you will have to find the surface area of one, but I don't think you have to use the net. That'll be up to you. But we are still going to do it just because I'm not 100% positive, so that we know how to do it. So we have those 3 rectangles going down. Okay, the one that's in the middle is going to be the bottom. Let's not forget that. Okay, and that'll be like the left side folding down. So if we're looking at this, we're unfolding this left side, keeping the bottom there, and unfolding this right side. So this will be our right side. Okay, then we have our 2 triangles coming off of that bottom. So notice that this is our bottom, and we'll have those triangles kind of like folding off like that. Okay, so these green triangles are going to fold down. All right, so that it's attached to that bottom piece. Now these are right triangles, so we don't want to make that drawing like these triangles up here, because those are not right triangles. Right triangles have a straight line and then a slant. So we kind of want to make it look a little bit like a rocket ship. Okay. All right, the next thing we're going to have to do is label those dimensions. That's the trickiest part with these nets. Sorry, my eraser is not working for some reason. There we go. Is labeling those dimensions. So let's start with that left side. Okay, so we're in blue right here. We're looking at this rectangle right here. All right, we know this piece, which connects with all the other rectangles, is 8, because if the bottom of this rectangle is 8, the top is also 8. So this will be 8. And the other dimension will be 13. All right, now since all the rectangles share that 8, it should be 8 going straight down, but we will just keep going and you will see how that works. Now for this yellow rectangle, we're going to jump down to the right side. I'm going to use purple because if I write in yellow, you're not going to be able to read it. So again, the dimensions are 8 right here, and their dimension is 5. So this side is 5. Okay. Next we have that bottom. I'm going to use red for the bottom. So I'm looking at that bottom rectangle. Dimensions are 12 by 8. Again, these 8s have to match up, so this is the 8. That would be the 12. Okay. Last but not least, we have to do our triangles. So we're going to use green to show our triangles. Okay, the side that attaches to that rectangle, notice how the side that attaches to that rectangle, when we're folding it down, is going to be 12, which we already have labeled 12, so that is correct. Okay, and then the other dimension, since this is a right triangle, it's the 2 straight lines that we use, because the height of a triangle is straight up and down at a 90-degree angle, which would just be the other side length, is 5. 12 and 5. There we go. Now we have a labeled net. Okay, we just did that shape by shape. Now to find the surface area, we're just going to take the area of each one of these shapes. So let's start with that left side, which I put those dimensions in blue. We have 8 times 13. 8 times 13. We can pull over to the side if we're not sure. Would be 104. Then we have our bottom, which is 8 times 12. If we're not sure, we can 8 times 12 to get 96. We have our right side, which is 5 times 8. We should know that fact. That would be 40. And then we have our triangles. Okay, those triangles are going to be 12 times 5. But remember our formula for triangles, we have to divide it by 2 or take half of it. So I'm just going to take times 1/2. Okay, so 12 times 5 is 60. Half of 60 equals 30. We have 2 triangles, so we should have 2 30s. Last up, we are going to add up all of those numbers. I'm going to just start like chunking them together to make it easier mental math. 96 plus this 4 gives us 100, plus that 100 gives us 200. So 104 plus 96 is 200. 40 plus 30 is 70, plus another 30 is 100. So this would come out to 300 centimeters squared, because we're still finding area, so it's centimeters squared. Alright, so like I said, it's very, very similar to rectangular prisms. It's just that we have those triangles instead of all rectangles. Remember, we have 2 triangles and they're always going to be the same because they're the bases, and the bases always have to be identical. Alright, so the next 2 examples, I'm not going to have you draw the full-on net because realistically that's not the fastest way to get the answer, and I'm sure that many of us are very concerned with the fastest and easiest way. So we're just going to go with those puzzle pieces. That was my favorite. Since I'm going to kind of run out of room, I'm going to start going down here. I'm just going to start with those triangles. Okay, so I have my triangles. The base of my triangle is 16. The straight up and down height, it says, is 6. Okay, so to find the area of my triangles, I'm going to do 16 times 6 times 1/2. Now remember I can always distribute this 1/2 at any time. So to make this easier mental math, I'm going to take 1/2 of 16, which is 8, and do 8 times 6, which gets us 48. You could also do 16 times 6 and then take half of that. You'll still get 48. I just like to make it easier for myself to do mental math. All right, now I have 2 of those triangles, so I have 48 and another 48. Those make up the area of my triangles. Next, I am going to have my left side, which is very hard to see. So I'm going to kind of sketch it out for you. It's going to kind of go up like that. Okay, so basically we need to know the height going back, which is going to have to be the same as the height going back here, and the slant height going up, which it has measured as 10. Okay, so for this left side, we're going to have a 10, and then that distance going back, which you can't really see, going back right here is going to be 9 as well. So 10 by 9, which gives us 90. Okay, then let's do that right side. The right side, we also have a 10 by 9, which is going to be equal to 90. Now, one thing I do want you to notice with these prisms is that those 2 rectangles are not always the same. For example, look up at the example we did before. This height was 5, that height was 13. So they're not always going to be the same. Okay, the bottom was 12 by 8, but they are always going to share that one dimension where they fold. okay, which is the 8, which is why it's 9. It's just a coincidence that both the side lengths are 10. So you can't always assume that they're going to be the same because they're not, for example, in our first one that we went over. All right, last but not least, we have the bottom. Okay, so we have the bottom, and the length and width of the bottom is 16 by 9, so we take 16 times 9. We can pull it over to the side to do that math. 9 times 6 is 54. Should get 144. Last up, we're going to add all those up. All right, so I'm going to group together 48 and 48. When I group those together, I would get 96. Group my 90s together to get 180. And then I can add 96 plus 144 plus 180. Which will give you a surface area of 420 meters squared. You know what I realized I did not do was draw the pictures. So what I should have done is drawn a rectangle that was 9 by 10, another rectangle that was 9 by 10, and then the bottom rectangle, oops, was 16 by 9. Guess it doesn't really matter because I kind of drew it on the screen for you to watch. But for your work, you should have those rectangles. You don't have to, but it might help you visualize. All right, we have one more example that we are going to go over at the time. I think we're going to skip this last example because it's just a little bit more difficult than anything that I believe you're going to have. All right. So let's do the puzzle piece again. So let's start off with those triangles. All right, here we have a tent, and the material that makes a tent is considered the surface area because the inside's hollow, okay? And that tent material, that fabric that you use, is basically the outside of this triangular prism. All right, so it tells us that the base is 6, and that straight up height, it looks like it is pointing to 4. So to find the area of our triangles, we take 6 times 4 times 1/2. I'll take 1/2 of 4, which would just give us 6 times 2, which is 12. We have 2 of those identical bases, so we'll have 12 plus 12, which I will later simplify to 24. All right. Next, we are going to do our left and right sides. Now, we should know for a tent, even if you've never used a tent, it needs to be the same height on each side, okay? Otherwise, you'd have a tent that's kind of falling over. So we have our left side, which is a rectangle that is 7 by 5. 7 by 5. Okay, 7 times 5 gives us 35. We then also have a right side. It's going to be the same distance back. Okay, and it does tell us that that side length is also 5. So even though we can't see it, we can use this side length and know that it's the same distance going back because otherwise it would not stand up. Okay, so for that right side, we also have a 7 by 5. All right, and remember what I said, that is not always true. Okay, it's not always true that they're the same. Last but not least, we're going to have that bottom. Now this one's going to be hard to visualize because we don't see those dotted lines. Since it's a tent, it's all filled in, so I'll kind of draw it in there for you. All right, so the bottom of that tent is going to be a rectangle that is 7 by 6. Last up, I'm going to add up all of my circled numbers to get that final surface area. If you would like to pause the video so you can do that addition on your own, that would be fine. I got 136. Last but not least, I need to put my label on it. That is going to be feet squared. Right, and that is how you find the surface area of triangular prisms. If you're saying, Miss Lakin, I get it, I'm done, I'm ready to move on, I want you to try this problem on your own. I do have the answer, so you can always ask me if you got it right. Because I want you to challenge yourself if you're thinking this is too easy. If you're thinking it's not too easy, you definitely do not have to attempt this. It is going to be more challenging. But if you're one of those students who always is asking for me to challenge you a little bit more, I want you to try this problem. Okay? I do want you to pay attention that since you're staining this ramp, the bottom is going to be on the ground, so you don't have to stain the bottom of the ramp. So you're just doing the top, the left and right sides, which are triangles, and this side back here. So only have 2 rectangles and 2 triangles. All right, baby, you are more than welcome to pause the video and try it out, and then come check the answers with me in class.